I'm 24 years old, married, and proudly child-free. My husband and I decided early on that parenting wasn't in the cards for us. It's not that we hate children. We just really value our peace, our quiet, and our freedom. I work from home, in a quiet little office where I can light a candle, put on lo-fi beats, and disappear into my tasks. My husband's the same way. We're introverts to the core, and the idea of toys everywhere, sticky fingers on our walls, and screaming matches over who ate the last cookie? Not for us. I have 2 siblings, Lucas, my younger brother at 29, and Fernanda, our older sister at 31. Both of them have kids. Lucas has twins, 1 boy and 1 girl, both 6 years old, and Fernanda has 3, a 7-year-old, a 4-year-old, and a 2-year-old. Yeah, she's in the thick of it. Even though I don't want kids of my own, I'm not anti-family. I love my siblings, and I genuinely care about their happiness. I don't judge them for choosing that path. But I do have my boundaries, and when it comes to babysitting or helping out, I've always made those boundaries very clear, especially with Fernanda, who, let's just say, has a tendency to push limits. Despite our different lifestyles, I've found a way to be helpful, at least to Lucas. His kids are different. They don't disrupt my life. They don't shake my world or challenge my sanity. And because of that, I've grown surprisingly fond of them. With Fernanda's kids, though, it's a completely different story. One that's become more complicated and explosive than I ever expected. But before getting into that, I need to explain why I've always said yes to Lucas and no to Fernanda. Lucas's twins, Leo and Lara, are the kind of kids you almost forget are in the room. They're eerily quiet, always together, and incredibly self-sufficient for 6-year-olds. There's been some speculation that they might be on the spectrum. Nothing diagnosed, just quiet murmurs within the family. They rarely speak unless spoken to, and even then, it's a soft, quick answer. They prefer books over cartoons, puzzles over playgrounds, and are perfectly content sitting side by side on the couch with their Switches. When Lucas asked if I'd be their emergency school contact, I said yes without hesitation. It's not just about family. These kids are easy. If the school calls because one of them has a fever or a tummy ache, I drive over, pick them up, bring them back to my house, and they quietly nestle into a corner of the living room. I go back to work in my home office without skipping a beat. Sometimes Lucas and his wife, Marina, need an evening out. When they do, he asks if I can babysit. I always say yes, and he always insists on paying me well. It feels more like pet sitting than babysitting, honestly. Leo and Lara know how to make themselves sandwiches. They clean up after themselves, and they don't fight or scream. They don't even ask me for anything. The fridge is open to them. They know where the blankets are, and they're more interested in their games than in making conversation. This arrangement works because it doesn't feel like babysitting. It's more like letting 2 tiny house guests exist in the background of my day. And since Lucas and Marina both work in healthcare, they can't always drop everything to run to the school when something happens. I don't mind stepping in for them. With Leo and Lara, I don't have to shift my schedule. I don't have to stop what I'm doing or raise my voice. I can do my job, drink my tea, and forget there are kids in the house. It's the exact level of commitment I'm comfortable with. And that's why I've never had an issue helping Lucas. Most days, my life runs like clockwork. I start work around 8 in the morning, in my home office with a second coffee already in hand. I handle reports, Zoom meetings, and emails without interruption. So when the school calls about Leo or Lara, it doesn't feel like a disruption. I pause my work, drive 10 minutes to the school, pick them up, and bring them home. They walk in, kick off their shoes, grab their Switches, and that's it. They don't even ask for the Wi-Fi password. They already know it. On the days I babysit during the evening, it's more of the same. They sit quietly, eat what they want, clean up their plates, and vanish into their own world. I barely have to interact with them, which sounds cold, But it's honestly ideal for someone like me who values solitude and needs to stay in work mode. Even when Lucas and Marina ask for help last minute, like a date night or an extra shift at work, I don't hesitate. Not because I'm some super aunt, but because it just doesn't feel like a favor. It barely shifts my day, and Lucas respects my time. He always checks if I'm available. He always offers money, even when I don't ask for it. He's never assumed I owe him anything. The trust between us has built over time. He knows I won't let him down, and I know he'll never take advantage of me. And honestly, the kids are so low maintenance that sometimes I forget they're even here. They're like little shadows, moving through the house without ever disturbing the air. I think that's why it works. There's no mess, no chaos, no screaming, no interruptions. I don't have to split my attention or manage meltdowns. It's all so easy, so predictable, and so silent. The perfect setup for someone who loves her peace. But for Nanda's kids, that's another reality entirely. Before anyone thinks I'm playing favorites, let me paint a clear picture of what it's like around Fernanda's kids. Imagine the complete opposite of Leo and Lara. Fernanda has 3 boys, Miguel who's 7, Arthur who's 4, and Pedro who's 2. And when I say they're a handful, I'm being polite. Every family gathering turns into damage control the second they walk through the door. Miguel, the oldest, has this habit of wandering off. It doesn't matter if we're at my mom's house or a public park. Turn your back for 30 seconds and he's trying to sneak outside or digging through someone's purse. Someone always has to have eyes on him, or he's gone. Arthur? He's intense. He screams when he's happy, he screams when he's mad, and he throws anything he can grab when he's frustrated. Toys, food, sometimes even his own shoes. He's had full-blown meltdowns over the wrong color cup, and Fernanda usually just looks exhausted and lets him ride it out. And Pedro is a typical 2-year-old glued to his mom's leg, crying for attention, needing constant supervision because he still puts everything in his mouth. Now picture all 3 of them in one room, one trying to escape, one screaming and throwing things, and one crying because his brother hit him with a toy truck. That's every interaction I've ever had with them. Fernanda has asked me dozens of times to babysit. Overnight, for a few hours, even just while I run to the store. And every single time I've said no. I've never changed a diaper in my life. And honestly, I don't want to start with 3 hyperactive kids who don't listen. It's not about not loving my nephews. It's about my sanity and my patience that I know I don't have. And yet, somehow, Fernanda still acts surprised every time I refuse. Fernanda doesn't ask anymore. She pleads. But no matter how many times she's asked, my answer has always been the same. I can't. I won't. It's not like I'm being inconsistent. I've made it clear for years that I'm not comfortable watching her kids. The chaos, the mess, the screaming. It's overwhelming. I'm not wired for that. And she knows it. Everyone in the family does. Yet somehow, every time she needs a favor, it's like she forgets everything I've ever told her. There was a time, maybe 2 years ago, when she asked me to babysit all 3 boys while she went to a dentist appointment. It's just for 2 hours, she said. I reminded her I work full-time from home and can't have that kind of distraction. She got frustrated, saying I was making excuses, that I was always available for Lucas but never for her. That comparison always comes up. You watch Lucas's kids without complaining. And yeah, I do. Because his kids don't pull the curtains down or scream for juice every 5 minutes. But Fernanda doesn't see the difference. To her, it's about fairness, about family. She thinks I'm being selfish, that I'm punishing her for having kids that are harder to manage. It's not about punishment. It's about limits. I've never once claimed to be a free babysitter. I've never offered to help with diapers or tantrums. And every time I say no, I say it calmly, kindly. But the message never seems to stick. What really stings is how she takes it personally, like I'm rejecting her, not just declining a favor. And over time, that resentment has just built up between us like a wall. Still, I stood firm. I thought I had made myself clear enough, until everything fell apart in her life. And she came to me with a desperate ask I just couldn't grant. Last year, everything came crashing down for Fernanda. Her husband, Rodrigo, walked out. One day he was there, and the next he packed a bag and left. No dramatic goodbye, no drawn-out fight, just gone. He's a trucker, always on the road, and now, apparently, always out of reach. He pays child support, sure, but he hasn't come back to see the boys once since he left. It was a mess. She cried at our mom's house for hours the day after he left, said she didn't see it coming, that she had no idea how she was supposed to raise 3 boys on her own. And honestly, I felt for her. I did. No one deserves to be left like that. She had to pick up extra shifts, juggle daycare drop-offs, school runs, and doctor appointments all by herself. The boys started acting out more, especially Arthur, the 4-year-old. My mom tried to step in where she could, but she's disabled and physically can't handle 3 hyper kids. Lucas helped financially a few times, but he's got his own family to take care of. Still, through all of it, Fernanda never stopped asking me to help. And I never stopped saying no. I felt guilty sometimes, sure, but not enough to say yes. I kept telling myself, I didn't choose this life. I didn't sign up to raise kids, let alone someone else's. And especially not 3 kids with that much energy and that many emotional needs. I knew if I stepped in once, even for a moment, I'd be opening a door I could never close. And I wasn't ready for that. But then came the call last week, the one that would push everything to the edge. Not just for her, but for me too. It was a Thursday morning when I got the call. Fernanda's number lit up my screen while I was in the middle of prepping for a client presentation. I silenced it. She called again, then a 3rd time. I finally picked up, expecting another overwhelmed rant, but her voice was frantic. Arthur had bitten another kid at preschool. Hard. The school had called her to pick him up immediately. And apparently, they have a strict policy. If a child bites another, they're suspended for a full week. She was panicking. If she left work now and stayed home for the week, she was going to lose her job. Her boss had already warned her that her performance was slipping. She needed me to help, just this once, just with Arthur. I paused. I looked at my screen. Unread emails, Zoom invites, project deadlines. I thought about the promotion I'd been working toward for months. And then I thought about Arthur, screaming, throwing things, needing constant supervision. She insisted it wouldn't be that bad, that he'd calm down eventually, that I could let him watch TV while I worked. But I knew better. This wasn't like Leo and Lara reading quietly on the couch. Arthur required eyes on him at all times. He was unpredictable and intense. And I can't have a 4-year-old melting down in the background while I'm leading a client pitch. I told her no. Not because I didn't care, not because I wanted her to fail, but because I knew I couldn't juggle him and work, not even for a day, and certainly not for a week. She went silent on the phone. Then she said, "If I lose my job, it's on you." I didn't know what to say. I hung up feeling hollow, but firm in my choice. I didn't think she'd let it go, but I didn't expect her to bring the fight to our mother's house. It was Sunday afternoon when it all came to a head. I stopped by my mom's place to drop off some groceries and visit for a bit. Fernanda was already there. The second I walked in, I could feel the tension in the room. She was sitting stiff on the couch, arms crossed, eyes red and puffy. My mom gave me a tight smile, clearly uncomfortable. I barely got a hello out before Fernanda stood up and said, loud enough for the neighbors to hear, "So you have time to babysit Lucas's kids, but you can't help your own sister when she's drowning?" I froze. My mom whispered something like, "Not here, girls." But Fernanda wasn't stopping. She started listing everything she's been through since Rodrigo left. How she's holding down a job alone, how the boys are driving her crazy, how she hasn't slept in months. And then she turned to me and said, But God forbid you give me a single hour of help. I tried to stay calm. I explained again that Lucas's kids don't require supervision, that I can work while they're here, that Arthur is a completely different situation, that I can't be chasing after a 4-year-old who bites people while I'm on Zoom calls. She didn't care. She started crying, yelling that it wasn't fair, that she didn't get to choose how difficult her kids are, that she didn't ask to be a single mom, that all she ever wanted was for her family to be there for her, and instead, she gets doors slammed in her face. I looked at my mom for backup, but she just sighed and said, "She's right, you know. Maybe you could have helped, just this once." I felt cornered, outnumbered, like I was being painted as the villain for protecting my own limits. Fernanda stormed out with Pedro crying on her hip and Arthur kicking the front door on the way out. I just stood there, speechless, while my mom stared at her tea like it held the answer to everything. I drove home in silence, wondering if maybe I really had gone too far. The thing that stuck with me the most wasn't Fernanda yelling. It wasn't the crying or the guilt tripping. It was that one line my mom said, "Maybe you could have helped, just this once." It echoed in my head all week. I tried to replay everything logically. I don't have a personal issue with Fernanda. I'm not punishing her for being a single mom. I've just always known my limits, and I've respected them. I help Lucas because it's manageable. His kids don't need supervision. I can be in the same house and still get a full workday in without stress or noise. But Arthur? He demands attention. He throws things. He screams. He's not the kind of kid you can let wander around while you respond to emails. And it's not just Arthur. Miguel wanders. Pedro cries. It's not a one-time thing. It's a guaranteed disruption. I didn't make them that way. And I don't blame Fernanda for it. But I also can't pretend like there's no difference between helping her and helping Lucas. There is. A massive one. And ignoring that fact just to appear fair doesn't make any sense to me. Still, the part that makes me hesitate, the part that makes me question myself, is that maybe I was being too rigid. Maybe I could have taken a few days off, rearranged my schedule, sacrificed some comfort. Not because I had to, but because she's my sister, because she was desperate. But where does that line end? If I say yes once, does that open the door to more emergencies, more expectations, more guilt? Or was this the one time she really needed me, and I just chose not to show up? I've always believed in setting boundaries, but now I wonder if mine cost someone more than just a little inconvenience, and I can't stop thinking about that. I've replayed it in my head 100 times. The phone call, the yelling at my mom's house, the look Fernanda gave me as she walked out, like I was some kind of monster for not saving her when she needed it most. I get it. She's overwhelmed. She's exhausted. She's desperate for support. And I know being a single mom with 3 wild kids isn't something she signed up for. But neither did I. I didn't choose this life. I chose peace. I chose quiet. I chose work I care about, and a home that doesn't revolve around sticky fingers and tantrums. I didn't say no because I hate her. I said no because I genuinely couldn't do it. I work from home, sure, but I still work. I'm not watching Netflix all day. I have responsibilities, goals. I'm trying to earn a promotion. And that means I can't spend the week chasing Arthur around the house hoping he doesn't bite me too. Still, Fernanda's reaction cut deep. So did my mom's comment. And the worst part is, I don't know if they're wrong. Maybe I was being selfish. Maybe I let my need for structure outweigh someone else's need for help. But maybe not. Because when I help Lucas, it's not a burden. It's easy. It fits into my life. Fernanda's situation doesn't. And I don't think it's fair to ignore that difference just to treat everyone equally. I set a boundary, I stuck to it, but now I'm left wondering if I should have broken it, just once. So I'll ask you, the people outside this situation who don't have family bias clouding your judgment, am I the asshole for saying no to my sister, even if it meant she might lose her job while still saying yes to my brother? Or was I just being honest about what I could handle?